All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Haley, and I'm super excited to hang out with you all for the next hour. We are the Novel Neighbor. Woman and owned. We are woman-owned and operated bookstore in St. Louis, Missouri. Before I introduce our authors, I want to run through the plan for the evening. Our author and our moderator will join me here in just a moment to celebrate the release of Wanderlust. She's very cute. Look at her. Um, and towards the end of the event, we will have an audience Q&A. So during the audience Q&A, you can ask any questions in the comment section of whichever platform you are watching us on, and we will pick some questions. That's just like enough for me, just very easy tonight. I'm super excited to introduce our author for the evening. Elle Everhart writes romantic comedies featuring the internet, sarcasm, and lots of queer characters. She is a secondary English teacher in East London, and when she's not writing or teaching, she's hanging out with her son and obsessing over the worst shows on television. Wanderlust is her debut novel. So tonight I will be in conversation with Katie from Beach Reads and Bubbly, which is a books and beauty blog. She has a following online, and you can find her anywhere online at Books, Beach Reads, and Bubbly. So that's enough from me. So here is Elle and Katie.
Hello.
Hi, good evening. How are you all doing tonight?
Amazing.
Yeah, good. Thank you for having us.
Of course. All right, and I will leave you guys to it.
Awesome.
Perfect.
So, Elle, I loved this book. I finished it last night. It affected my dreams, I have to say, in a good way. I swear to God, in a very good way. And before I get into my questions, I just have to say, like, what I loved about this book is I feel like at times you're just told that two characters like each other, and you just kind of have to, say, okay.
Yep.
In this book, you really see them falling in love with each other, and it's like a true slow burn that like the anticipation gets you through it, and it's very fun watching them fall in love. So I loved it. I thought it was so good.
Oh, thank you so much. That's high praise. I'm going to be glowing for that for like the rest of the week.
Okay, so I have to start from the beginning. Well, first, okay, I'm reading the book. I'm like, this is set in the UK, and which I love. I love reading like with a British accent in my head. And so I looked you up on Instagram. I'm like, does she have an accent? And you don't. So will you explain your ties to the UK and how long you've been there? And is it hard writing in a UK voice?
So I've been here now 2 years, 2.5 years. We're going on our third year this autumn. So we've been here a little while. But I'd been traveling here a couple of years beforehand. We had plans to move, but then the pandemic happened and we were effectively grounded for a year and a half. But I'd always loved it here, always wanted to be here. Kind of obsessively as a teenager was like, I want to do accents. And I had that whole teenage obsession with the UK, which is where it really started. But living here, I just adore it. It definitely has its idiosyncrasies, strange things about it. And I stick out like a sore thumb. I've really had to practice lowering the volume of my voice when I'm in public. Didn't realize how loud Americans were. So I've worked on that quite a bit, but because I'm a teacher, I spend all day around British kids and British adults, and I spend all day with British people. And when I'm at school now, I have a bit of an accent, but I sound more Irish than British just because my American vowels won't quit. So it's not too strange for me now, but
yeah. You definitely have an accent when you talk. It's so funny. And I love that about the book. I felt totally transported, which I just have a real soft spot for romances set in the UK. So I loved that.
Me too.
So you're an English teacher and you wrote a romance novel, which feels like a lot of work for one person to do. Have you always been writing your whole life, or was there something that you're like, okay, I have a romance novel in me and it's time to put the pen to paper? Like, what kind of was the inspiration to get started writing a romance novel?
Yeah, I will say, apologies if you can hear, I do not know what's happening on my road. The perils of living in a big city, I guess, but Someone's very enthusiastic outside, so if you can hear that.
You sound great. Nope, can't even hear
Really
it.
sorry. But I thought that question was going in a completely different direction about teaching and writing romance, which we can get to.
I want to go that direction as well.
Okay, because I'm currently being traumatized by that happening right now, so that's fun. But it seems cliche because I think most people who write say it. But I've wanted to write forever. It didn't feel like a realistic thing to happen. I was always kind of writing for myself. I like to think I had a secret notebook. It wasn't secret because my parents knew that I had it because I was in 4th grade and not very good at hiding things. But I remember writing stories about people kissing in them in the 4th grade and then having to get sat down and have a conversation with, maybe this isn't age appropriate for you yet. And this whole thing, which clearly is a formative experience.
I'm just amazed that you could write about people kissing in 4th grade. I feel like that is very impressive.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wish I still had this notebook. I think I would be so like just immediately sent into the throes of some kind of stress response. But I'm sure it's horrific. But that, blossomed naturally into writing fan fiction as you do when you're 16 and just full of angst and a need to express fandom love. But I think that was a way for me to practice telling stories. I didn't think about it that way at the time. I just needed to get it out of me and out of my head. But I think back now, and even some of my turns of phrase, I think I picked up then and from those like fan communities. So I wasn't thinking about a writing career at the time, but I learned a lot of tricks, I think.
Was there like a romance novel or a book you remember around that time that really made you want to write love stories?
I cannot remember the names of them for the life of me, except for one. It was called Caribbean Cruising, and it had a purple cover with a cruise ship on it. Yes. And then I don't think it was the same author, but it was very much the same vibe. Mm-hmm. And it had like a beach hut on the cover. And I checked these books out of my local library probably like 100 times and just kept rereading them to the point that I finally went to the bookstore and bought my own copies because I was just like...
every stamp was just you.
Yeah. Every time. And I wish I could find them again, but when I looked it up, I couldn't find it successfully. I probably didn't dig deep enough. I'm sure they don't hold up, and I'm sure there's so much in it that now as an adult I would read and go, oh my God, what was I doing? Yes. But that was like it for me.
I feel like you must have, it makes sense that you were well read young because you have to have something that makes you, want to go and write romance novels. And speaking of younger people reading romance, do your students know you are a romance writer, and are they reading Wanderlust?
So this is currently unfolding in front of me. I have public social media, and the kids are weird and they look me up. And I never did this to my teachers at school. I didn't care what they were doing outside of school, but they're weirdly fascinated. And so I've had to block several of them on Instagram and TikTok over the last couple of months.
Do they message you to chat?
No, they just start like engaging with my stuff. And I'm like, okay, I know you.
Yes.
You're blocked. Like, go away. But yesterday, it was really sweet. But my entire year 9 class, which is like 8th grade, they came in and they all were sitting down. They said, Miss, congratulations. And they applauded. And I was like, oh my God, how do you know that this is my book release day? And they're all telling me, Miss, I ordered it. I can't wait to read it. And I'm like, please.
Oh, we should let people know who haven't read it. This is not a closed door romance.
No. Well, and they're 13 and 14. I'm like, I don't want to get into this conversation with you. Like, I just want to talk about The Merchant of Venice right now. That's what I'm paid to do. Like, I'm so happy that your mom is proud that your teacher wrote a book and that you want me to sign it. But like, please don't read it.
Give it to your mom to read.
Yeah, and that she can tell you what it's about.
Exactly.
But it was so sweet. I wish they had then behaved really well in that lesson
Yeah.
to like continue the good vibes, but no, they were horrendous. So that was a bit of a letdown.
So now you're just holding your breath, waiting for them to read it inevitably.
My only reprieve is that it's not out in the UK yet. It will be tomorrow. And then I don't see them again for like 5 days. So
Okay.
maybe I'm like hoping they'll forget.
TikTok or something will occupy their time, hopefully.
God, I hope so. But they told me, some of my year 8 classes, which is like 7th grade, have told me, but they've also done book projects on Colleen Hoover, which I'm like, that's a whole other.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So this isn't new to them, but they'll just be imagining you writing these words.
Yes. And that's what I can't. I'm like, you guys, I think about some of the things that I said in this book, and I'm full of regret.
Do not be. You wrote it excellently. We'll just have to forget that.
I'll just have to pretend that the 12 and 13-year-olds that I spend so many hours a week with aren't reading these and understanding that I typed them and they came out of my brain.
Maybe their brains aren't developed enough for them to think that. So we're just going to put good.
God, I hope so.
That is what's
I'm going to adopt that. I feel like it's a bit of a delusion that I'm going to have to cover in myself.
You got to protect yourself. So let's go with the delusion. Let's lean into it here. Okay, so this is my last teaching question, I promise. But do you have a favorite book to teach?
So, unfortunately, I feel like the UK English curriculum is so boring because they're so into like English heritage, which is such a loaded, messed up topic. I could literally talk about all day if this were an education discussion. We do a lot of Shakespeare. Macbeth is more interesting, but we have to do Romeo and Juliet with some of our younger kids. So I get to spend a lot of time being like, Juliet was 13. Isn't that wild? And they're like, we had no idea she was 13. I thought they were soulmates. Like, he was literally dating another girl at the beginning of the play. Right. And she's 13 years old. These people should not be married.
Hell no.
So we get to do some debunking, which is great.
Okay, that's good. It will burst some of their bubbles, and bubbles that need to be bursted at this age. So that's good.
And the poetry is okay, but I love Victorian novels, so we get to do Dickens, but A Christmas Carol is not that exciting.
Wow, that is so British that's what you do.
Yeah, well, and I had a meeting with some people from the UK side of Penguin, and they were asking me about the curriculum, and it's the exact same thing that they did in school like 30 years ago. So it just really hasn't changed.
That's so funny. Okay, that's clear. That's so funny.
Yeah, they figured out what they liked and they stick with it, and that to me is just quintessentially British. Like, this works. Why are we going to do anything otherwise?
I deviate from things. Before we got on, we were kind of talking about the romance genre in the UK. And I realized that this question is very US focused, which is an American thing. that is the only lens I had on. But so I don't know if you're aware, but in the US, romance is the most popular and the fastest growing fiction genre. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people love romance?
I mean, I can only think about it like from my own, like if I've got my own hat on. It's an escape, I guess. And it's such a nice thing to see people, not to be too sentimental, but to see people falling in love, because even if you've had romantic relationships, maybe you're married, maybe you're in a fulfilling relationship, there's something so warm and just nice and gratifying about seeing people experiencing that, no matter what nonsense the author is going to throw them into to like muck up their lives and make it horrible and difficult, as authors love to do. It's nice seeing people choose each other. And I think romance is the only thing I can reasonably read right now. It's the only thing I've been able to read for a long time, because everything is horrible. And so it's so nice to be able to read something where most of the time everything's going to be okay at the end, and there's a safety in that. You don't have to worry about something horrendous happening or the worst or whatever. Because of the genre that things are going to be okay, no matter how tumultuous they are to get there, and that safety net is really nice.
I could not agree more. Someone once told me I qualified a book as a romance, and the couple didn't end up together in the end. And they were like, "This is not a romance." They're like, "This is a dramatic book." I was about to say a dramatic comedy, but there was nothing funny about it. But we're saying, as a romance, we are going into this understanding with the author that they will end up together in the end, and fun watching them along the way figure that out. So I totally agree with that.
But I think it does happen. Like we see this pop up every now and again on Twitter of things being tagged a romance and then they don't get together and then it flares up all over again. So it keeps happening. So I'm not quite sure like where the definition is falling away, or maybe it needs to be widened. But if they're not together, I'm like, then it can be a love story.
Right. It's not a love story.
It can be a love story and not a romance novel.
Yes.
That's
right. I completely agree with that. I recently read The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren, and the leading lady is a romance novelist. And a big part of the book is something that I never considered as a reader, which is probably very ignorant of me. And it was about like the criticism and judgment she faces being a romance novelist. Like people are always just doubting her intelligence and just really not taking her career seriously at all. And I, as a reader, get that all the time. I think that's why some of us go to a Kindle when you don't need the whole world knowing what you're reading. But I had never thought of the author, because it's so public what you're writing. Do you face that when you tell people, like when you say I'm a writer and they ask, what do you write? Do you face that kind of judgment, do you feel?
I haven't yet. I think in part I'm so quick. My impulse anytime anyone brings it up is just to hide. I've done it several times already. I just hide away. And if I can't see them, then they can't see me. Like I don't know, some kind of animal that does that. They just head in the sand is apparently my approach to dealing with uncomfortable feelings. But most people in general just seem, to this point, knock on wood, impressed that you've written a book. Especially, I'm an English teacher, and so lots of teachers in the English department are like, I'd love to write a book. It seems so difficult to do. I'm so impressed that you even finished something. There's a lack of understanding of how long it takes and what the back end process looks like, which is fair, because I don't think we talk about that a lot. But when I explained to them that I was writing this book since 2019, they're like, wow, that's a lot of years. I'm like, churn it out. And then Penguin decides to buy it. Like there's a lot that goes into it. So no judgment yet, but I'm sure, I know it exists. I know it's out there. I've been fortunate enough to avoid it.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Since 2019, so how does your writing process look? Like, would you steal away anytime you can get and type it out on your laptop? Are you a handwritten person? How did this book come to be?
I'm a fast first drafter. At least I really used to be. Now, I think I'm still technically a fast drafter, but I'm a lot slower than I used to be. I, from like April through May, so about like a month and a half, 2 months, did the whole first draft. And we weren't working from home or anything then. COVID hadn't happened. So I was getting up at 5 o'clock every morning and writing for like an hour and a half before I had to start getting ready for work. And some days were more successful than others. Some days I look back, I would grab my notebook if it weren't stashed away somewhere so I could show you. But I did my word counts every day, kind of obsessively, because it helped me focus a little bit and get a sense of progress happening. I think, especially in the early drafting days, it was so easy for me to lose sight of the progress that was happening. And it was a way to chronicle it. But there were days I would get like 4,000 words written in the morning. And I have no idea how I did that now.
The story was in you. It just had to come out. That's awesome.
Yeah. I could not do that now. I have no clue what I was on. I don't know what was happening in my brain, but something. But then, I put it away for a long time, and then COVID happened. And then I was just stuck in my house and couldn't go anywhere. And I thought, well, I have this novel that is going all around the world. I'm going to sit and I'm going to edit this and I'm going to go around the world in my house. And it was a really nice escape getting to do it that way.
That is, and that's what I want. Well, let's get into the book too, because that's what I wanted to ask. So I'm assuming everyone on knows the synopsis, but if you don't, Elle, tell me if I'm butchering this, but how I would describe it is it's a story of a woman who wins a radio contest that I desperately want to win and want to exist in the US.
Me too. I've only ever won like a gift voucher for dinner. And even that to me felt like luxury.
Anything free we get so excited about.
Yeah.
This radio contest really upped the ante. It was a trip essentially around the world. And the only catch is that the radio show gets to pick who this woman's travel companion is. So anyone on her phone. And I loved that premise. And who is chosen to be her travel companion but the gorgeous, handsome, charming guy that she ghosted, that she met at a bar months prior. And so, I mean, what an awkward, amazing scenario. And so, you know, they're getting to know each other, they're reacquainting post ghosting. And the thing I didn't even think of when she won is like they're in one hotel room together throughout this whole so you're getting to know each other in such close quarters.
Yep.
It was so fun and delicious. So I really loved the story. So I have to know, so what was the inspiration for this book?
The whole thing, I guess it's not a spoiler just to say that they went to Iceland. If you've read it, but if people listening have read it, there's a bit where they're in Iceland and they're beside a glacial lake. At the very end of 2018, I had just gone to Iceland and been in that exact spot. And I was like obsessively thinking about it. I have horribly taken pictures because I'm, unlike Jack, not a photographer. And they were taken on my like iPhone 7 or whatever. That's like 3 pixels now compared to what we've got. So it was just truly tragic photography was happening. But I just could not get that out of my head. And so I needed to get some people there. And I've always loved traveling and leaving my home state. You know, as much as I love Baltimore, the suburb that I lived in was not for me. So I was always dreaming of being somewhere else. And the thing that I love the most about rom-coms, I think, is that they take something that makes sense and then they make it absurd. And I'm just obsessed with that. Like, no one ever in the history of the world has solved a problem by fake dating someone else. That's not ever happened, but I'm obsessed with that trope in romance because it makes no sense and I love it every time. So how can I make people go to Iceland but then make this the most ridiculous version of itself? And it was a game with my own self at the beginning of how can I make this more and more absurd. I obviously had to rein it back. They can't go everywhere. They did go to every continent save Antarctica in the first draft of this, but it was then really like flybys of things. So it needed to get edited down, but that was really the inspiration for it, thinking of Iceland and then the absurdity of the genre that I love.
The only location that you've been to that the Dylan and Jack go to?
Iceland, New York. I mean, I lived on the East Coast, so I'm not a New Yorker by any means, but London, obviously, I live in. I'm trying to think, like, where else have I been?
Tokyo?
No, it's on my list, and I keep looking at flights and then talking to my son, like, do you want to get on a 14-hour plane ride? And he's like, no, can you stop? He's very reluctant. I just want to stay in my house and mind my business. Yes. And I'm like, come on, let's do stuff. So I don't know.
Well, one day, Tokyo.
Yeah.
And
He really likes Pokemon. He really likes anime. So I'm like, all right, I'll get you out here with that hook, and then we can go do stuff that's fun.
I'm shocked that you haven't been everywhere, just because when I was reading it, I'm like, she must be incredibly well traveled because each location felt really authentic, the experiences. Like I was Googling the robot show. I was just, all of it was things it's not like, you know, things that might come to mind if you've never been there. It seems like you had experienced it all. So good job on the writing front, because it felt like a true trip.
I truly spent, it's sick. If I went back and added up how much time I spent on Google, I would probably be horrified, because I would figure out what hotel they were in and then would basically walk around the city on Google Maps. And then the bit in New York, I actually did this as well. I just picked out landmarks, like things they would be seeing, and would just make a list as they were going. And I didn't obviously use the vast majority of the stuff that I was writing about. But I only know that there's an owl cafe in Tokyo because I spent an hour and a half walking around on Google Maps in Tokyo. I really want to go to that owl cafe as well.
Oh, yeah, so do I. That is amazing that is how you experience these places. I mean, that is so cool. And that's why this book is great, because it truly is like, armchair travel. I feel like I found out about so many things that I hadn't before. And you do a good job of like getting in the weeds at sometimes, and then other times, like, I thought your pacing was really good. I have to say.
Thanks. It was a really hard balance. It was really tough to get right.
I bet it was tempting to provide like endless details on every place, because there's so much material to work with and scenarios you could have put them in.
Well, and I love a Victorian novel, as I said. So Dickens rambles on for pages and pages describing a shelf, and I very much have that impulse. So knowing when to pull back is a skill that I'm still learning, but we'll get better with time.
Well, you did great on here. Was there something that surprised you the most in the process of writing this book?
Ooh. I mean, I think the thing that grew the most, this isn't your question, but maybe I'll get to it.
Yeah.
Is something I'm still really working on. I tend to really like to write from one POV. I really struggle writing from two. I feel like sometimes I read two POV and they're not different enough. Like the voices don't sound different enough. And I don't know if I can inhabit two people in the way that I would need to differentiate them now. But it was really interesting learning how to still develop the love interest's backstory, even through the perspective of the other person. That was something that even when I was querying it, Jack didn't really have a good backstory. He had drama.
Yeah. Right. You knew Dylan super well and everything that made her, but Jack. That's right. Exactly.
But Jack was closed off to me, to Dylan, obviously. But he was cardboard basically to the way that he is now. And that was something that I didn't really even start cracking until I was in Pitch Wars working with Courtney and Jenny, and they really pushed that, and he blossomed. He's a completely different person, or he's a whole person.
Yes.
And that was the best part of working on this, is figuring out how to balance that, because I think that's a writing skill that I'm gonna need.
I mean, I loved him. Like, I loved his whole, there are some books where the love interest, right, is two-dimensional. It's like attractive, nice guy who loves me.
Yeah. Muscles, like, usually.
Exactly. What makes him tick? Why is he so quiet and brooding? Like, what happened in this guy's life? And I thought you did a good job. I loved him. I was just so smitten. And I loved the sister element, and I thought you did a great job with Jack and Dylan. They're a great duo.
Thanks.
When you're putting them together, your leading characters, are you thinking about an actor or actress who's playing them? Are you thinking about people you've met in your life, your celebrity crush?
Yeah, because I've realized really recently from TikToks actually that this is bizarre, but I don't like get pictures of things in my head. I only think in words. So I can't imagine what people look like, which is why I don't think I have a lot of character description compared to other books. Because in my head, I don't know, they could be anyone sometimes.
Right.
And even character description in books, I'm like, yeah, okay. And then it just goes away. It doesn't stick in my mind.
Yeah.
But I will find people, usually on Pinterest, but sometimes, like, there's one girl who I know on TikTok. I don't know her on TikTok, but I watch her TikToks. And I just think she's gorgeous. So I'm like, you're in my book. Like, I've creepily got a picture of her in my Scrivener, and I'm like, I'm gonna use not all of her character description, but I'm like, you're the inspiration. This person I will never meet, and I will never tell her that.
Yeah. I love that though. You have someone who's like your or just like brings you back to who that person is.
Because I think it helps ground me, because I don't have a clear picture of what they look like in my mind, that I will forget details. Sometimes I'll be 3/4 of the way through a book and go, does this person have curly hair, or they have straight hair, or like, is it short, long? What did I do? And then I have to go back and figure it out. So it helps now to have a grounding image.
Oh, I'm sure. And I feel like now that the book's out, at least in the US, I feel like the internet is very good at fan casting. And so I've noticed things. I love looking at fan casts because I love seeing who people are picturing. And it just like people can make their favorite actor fit any role, like any description of characteristics they'll fit into the book. So
my time on Tumblr, Ben Barnes was doing a lot of work and a lot of fan casts for a long time.
Henry
does everything.
Yeah, Henry Cavill. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, but like Superman. Anytime I do a fan cast, the character can be like a Smurf, and they're like, "It's Henry." That's who it is, and I'm like, "Okay, I love it."
Sure. Yeah. Like totally.
Oh wait, that just reminded me. There's something I wanted to tell you. I know you said that no one in the history of the world has fake dated, but for like a good reason. I haven't, but I once did a poll on Instagram. And I was asking if anyone had fake dated, and I didn't get like a lot of like some of them, they weren't book worthy, but just last week, my cousin was on a work call, and 2 men, she works for like a very corporate job, and 2 men, like very buttoned up men, it was like a cocktail work call, and they both had been in fake relationships. One was with an ex. It was like happy place. They had broken up, but they were on a family trip and they didn't want to rock the boat, so they pretended to be dating. And the other one was just a good friend of his, and she needed to have a boyfriend to go home. Is that not amazing? So,
oh my God,
that just gives you all the permission you need to make things even more absurd. Like it happens in real life. Let it go off the rails.
And that does remind me of the people. I feel like I saw this. It was on Twitter, either Twitter or TikTok, probably Twitter, of people a couple years ago of being like, do we want to get married? Something to do with taxes. Like, do we want to get married and just make our taxes easier? I'll marry anyone off Twitter. I don't care. And I'm like, first of all, you're making a record that the government can see. So maybe we don't do this here. But I do remember seeing screenshots of people going back and forth like, yeah, I'll actually marry you. I don't know whatever came of it, but
that's a good premise. So would you ever write in a future book like a fake relationship because you like the trope?
I feel like I would have to really work out how to do it and make it fresh and make it different, because I feel like so many people have done it and they've done it well that I'm like, what could I do that is going to add something to this area of the genre? I don't know if I have an idea that would do that yet.
Was a fake relationship on some element, like in, how she was writing about them, like it was, it had elements of that.
Yeah, she was definitely hinting a little bit more than she should have been.
Okay, so I pair every book with a drink, alcoholic or non-alcoholic. Do you have a drink you would pair with this book?
Ooh. Yeah, I don't drink, so I'm trying to think.
Oh, good. Then a good. Well, I was thinking like from a location that they visited. I was like looking up, drinks like in Tokyo, like, and I was trying to figure out if there was something.
Yeah, I'm honestly so boring, and I'm not even British, but literally all I drink is tea. I'm not even kidding.
Okay, what's your favorite tea?
Just plain boring PG tips. I'm not even exciting.
I don't even know what that is, so I gotta write it down.
It's just plain black tea.
Okay. Okay.
But I'll do PG tips. I have sparkling water. Love a bit of sparkling water. That I've been on a boba obsession recently.
That's what I was thinking. That's exactly the drink I was thinking.
Yeah. And I'm not a boba expert. I think people who are boba experts would be appalled by my boba order. Because I don't get tapioca. I get the popping
I do too.
Bobas.
I do the exact same
I'm
thing.
sorry. I just like them. But I think it would be something like that.
Okay, I have two. I know we have like 6 minutes left. I have two questions for you. So in your bio, so like the internet plays a big role in this story. And I know in your bio you reference how you like writing about the internet. And can you explain? I mean, the internet and social media is basically like a third character in this book, I'd say.
Yeah.
Why do you like writing about the internet?
I think because I spend too much time on it. But I think about all of my formative experiences, for better or worse. And honestly, a lot of the time it was for worse because there were definitely things I should not have been seeing at the age that I saw them. But everything happened on the internet. I still remember early YouTube videos from like, I think it was 2006, YouTube was invented. I still remember those unhinged, like Charlie and the Unicorn videos. Like that lives in my mind. And I think it did something very fundamental to my brain chemistry. And I think that a lot of people who had that same experience, the same thing has happened in their mind that we're just not okay. Like something is a little bit.
Well, and then you write about social media really well. Like it was a vehicle in this story. Your use of it really helped in the story and like made everything seem very realistic. And I just thought it was well done. So you're writing well.
Because I think there's just something I know we see now online of like go outside and touch grass and yeah, like I need to go outside. I definitely need to touch grass a lot of the time. But there is something really weird and overwhelming about the internet, and especially when the internet is angry with you. That is not something that our human brains are designed to deal with, and it feels a lot more overwhelming than it seems. Like it's easy to say just shut your phone off, just close your laptop, just delete Twitter, because you know it's still happening. And that is such an interesting like psychological space to think about. Yeah, I don't know. It's fascinating to me.
It is totally fascinating. I completely agree.
Yeah.
Okay, two book recommendations that I'm going to ask you for. It's my favorite thing to ask for. So, what is your favorite romance that's released in the past year?
Okay, this is hard because I never read anything when it's actually released, so I never know when anything actually comes out.
Okay, that you've read in the past year.
Okay, well, I mean, Emily Henry is so easy to say, but I read Book Lovers literally like a feral animal. I did not leave my room, and I just read it straight through, and it was so good. But The Accidental Pinup as well. I listened to it on audiobook and just like was obsessed with it. Walking around listening to it was absolutely delightful. And I think that was Daniel Jackson's debut as well. It was really, really good. Obsessed with it.
Okay, making a note of that. Okay, my last one is, what is a book that you'd recommend that everyone should read that they probably haven't?
Ooh. Probably haven't. This is what's so hard. Okay.
Getting enough attention, maybe. Like, we're all talking about the Emily Henrys, but is there like a sleeper book you think more people should be reading?
Yeah, I mean, I would have said the Daniel Jackson book because it was, I mean, honestly, so good. I'm trying to like very frantically through my story.
Accidental can be your answer for both.
I know there's other things, and that's what's like driving me up the wall. As soon as we get off of this call, I'm gonna think of actually 15 books, and I'm gonna be so angry.
Send me them in a message, and I'll post them because that's what I'm always looking for is more book recommendations.
Okay. Yeah, because even Meryl Wilsner, like everybody knows about their books because their books are brilliant. Fallon Ballard is the same thing. Dating Dr. Dill, I recently read actually.
Oh, I really liked that one. I discovered that via Book of the Month, and I really enjoyed that one.
I do want more people to read that, though. Don't, if your teacher, do what I did, put it in your audiobook in your AirPods and be trying to clean your classroom, and then all of a sudden things are happening.
Things are happening. You're not focused on the cleaning. You're like so nervous your AirPods are gonna disconnect.
And I'm full jaw dropped staring because we've got windows that line the outside of my classroom into the corridor. And I'm like, if these people are going to read on my face,
Right, exactly
what is
what
going
you're
into my ears right
saying
now?
too, you naughty girl. Yeah, they will.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, dating Dr. Jones.
That's a really good one. Awesome. I think we're going into our Q&A time, Haley, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Hello, I have returned. Okay, let me scroll through our comment section. Okay. Oh, this one is super fun. This one gets asked at like every author event, but I always think it's like super fun and it's always so different. Someone asks, any advice for future authors?
Ooh. I would say get someone that you trust, not just someone who you trust to read your work because you think that they're going to be honest with you, but someone that is going to be comfortable giving you feedback from. So if you know that someone is going to make you upset in the way that they deliver feedback, maybe you trust them for other things, but maybe not for your book baby just yet. Find that person or those people and get feedback on it, get some other eyes on it if you're planning on sending it out. It's really boring because everyone always says read a lot and write a lot, but I honestly think that is the best thing. That's the only way that I learned how to write, was by writing a lot and doing it really badly for a really long time, and arguably still badly. The first draft of my second book is very bad, so you will continue to write badly, but knowing that the editing process will make it better, learning to sit in the comfort of that, I think. I don't know if that was cohesive, but that's what I'm saying.
Now that you bring up your second book, can you tell us a little bit about it?
A little bit. I should have asked my editor how much I'm allowed to say, so I don't know. Sorry, Gabby. It's going to be a sapphic romance, and I'm living for it already. Yes, I'm living.
Oh, I need that book now.
Well, you don't want it in its current state. It is actually hot garbage, but it will be better. Essentially, if you've seen a certain reality dating show that has to do with a whole bunch of people in a villa, I'll leave it there for now, but I'm obsessed with working on it. It's, as I've said, really not gelling at the minute, but it will be. I'm very excited.
Those are my two favorite things. Okay.
Mine too.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Was there anywhere else that you wanted to explore in this novel?
Ooh, okay. I had a list originally, I think of like 14 or 15 possible places that I wanted to go to. And loads of them got cut out just because of timing issues. I really wanted to try and go to Argentina or to go to Brazil. Yeah. And I'm just the amount of time I spent on Google, the more my obsession developed. But the math was just not mathing at the end. And it needs to end in Mexico City, which I'm also obsessed with. But
Elle, a little fun fact about me. My partner is from Argentina, so we got to go to Argentina this past winter. And girl, it's gorgeous. I think you would like absolutely adore it. Buenos Aires is like the place to be. I loved it. So when you said Argentina, I was just like,
yeah, cut to me on a 16-hour flight. Like,
amazing. Yeah, the flight was like not the best part, but I mean, the country is gorgeous. The mountains, beautiful. The city, amazing. We love her.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it just, every single picture, every single minute that I spent on Google, like it just looked gorgeous, and I needed to make it happen, but it was not happening.
Maybe in like your next novel, for like when they go in like the destination, when it's like the top 6 or whatever, you can like take them to Buenos Aires.
My dad is so keen on getting me to write. He said, just do Wanderlust 2 with different people, but it's the same trip. And I'm like, Dad, I really love the enthusiasm, but I don't think I'm going to sell my editor on basically the same book.
Just different destinations.
Yeah. He's like, you can do it. Just do it. But
just do it.
Yeah. Like, Dad, I love him. He's well-intentioned. but he really keeps at it. So we'll see. Maybe I'll crack in like 5 years.
Wanderlust, the continuation. Okay, and then kind of following up with that question, someone asked, which place was your favorite to write about in this book?
I think I loved them for different reasons. I'm between Cape Town and Mexico City, to be honest, because they both, I think, snuck up on me in a way that I knew they were beautiful and I knew that I would love them, but my appreciation for them grew so much more over the process of researching them and then writing them there than I ever expected it would. I mean, Mexico City, I then spent a whole bunch of time trying to convince my son, like, let's go to Mexico City. Because at that time it was the most accessible to me. So probably if I had to pick between the two of them, it would be Mexico City. But it's really tied between the two of them. It's really hard for me to choose.
All right. What is your favorite thing about living in the UK?
I mean, believe it or not, the weather. I'm very much an autumn girly. I love the rain and the gray. I'm incredibly pale, so sun doesn't work with me. Yeah, so it's very nice that it's July and it was like 20 degrees today, which is like low, like high 60s. So it's really nice. But the downside of that is when we do have a very warm day, there's no air conditioning anywhere and our walls are incredibly thick and it's very humid. So it's like being back home in Baltimore, but in a house designed to hold heat with no air conditioning. So that side of it's horrible. But the weather is excellent. And honestly, being American, I'm not used to being able to get to so many other countries so easily. And that has really changed the way that I travel. It's a lot less expensive. I can go on the train. I don't have to get a flight. It's a luxury that, or what felt like a luxury now is so much easier to do and way less expensive. So it's definitely a privilege being here and being able to do that.
I will say that weather sounds absolutely amazing. We are in like
it's hot.
a heat crisis in the Midwest and we are suffering. So that like fall weather sounds amazing right now.
Yeah, my family are back home in Baltimore and then in Idaho. And so I'm hearing a lot of like, you think you have nice weather? Well, we're cooking here. It's so hot.
Like an egg. You could probably put an egg out like on the concrete and like watch it fry. Like, to be honest.
Awful. Yeah.
Someone asks, do you prefer reading romance or writing romance?
I mean, I think my answer would probably depend on the day that you're asking me. If I'm really struggling, then I don't want to even look at a manuscript or think about it at all. And that's where then reading it is really nice because somebody else wrote it and stressed about it and it got edited. And I don't have to think about the plot or the mechanics. I just get to see these two people fall in love and it's like vacation. But there's something nice about being able to move your characters around and like play house with them a little bit. It's like playing The Sims, but in a book form, almost.
Listen, I love The Sims.
Me too.
Like, I think my favorite thing is just like making them little houses. I love the interior design aspect of them.
Yeah, my interior design is horrible. I would just make people and be like, okay, how long until they can fall in love?
Right, that was the matchmaker. I'm like, I'm building houses over here.
It's really a wonder that I grew up to write romance novels. All the hours I spent making my Sims fall in love, writing secret stories about people kissing. Like,
wow.
Wow.
Okay. Someone asks if Dylan and Jack could live anywhere else, where would they live?
This is so hard because honestly, I think this would be not a fight. They're mature discussion. Because I think Jack is someone, I mean, he can be open. But he likes his routines and he likes his structure, and being thrown out of that is hard for him. I think it would be a hard sell to get him to want to leave London. I think Dylan even too is tied to being here in some ways. I think, I don't know. I really want to think about this. This is hard because I think either they both have really close relationships with their siblings, and moving somewhere far away automatically, I speak from experience, automatically really complicates that. And especially once you throw time zones into the mix, that's a hot mess. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for this. I'm going to be thinking about this all night now.
Okay, you can think about that one.
I was saying this. I felt like Mexico City's they loved so much. Maybe that's just because I moved to Mexico City.
I mean, that's what I was thinking, but I was like, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe just a yearly pilgrimage there.
Yeah, Dylan would have to get really good with her Spanish because she would have to carry that relationship, because poor Jack, I mean, he would just get so embarrassed by the fact that he can't speak Spanish that it would just completely shut him down, which is fair. I feel that sometimes, but she would have to carry that. So
then a follow-up to that.
Okay.
Where would you both, like, if you both could live anywhere in the world, where would you both like live at?
Mine, you're probably living where you'd always want to live. Mine would be London. My husband and I would always talk about like if he got a job opportunity there. Actually, someone from London called me today, and I was manifesting a job opportunity. So I feel like I romanticize London, but you are, Elle, doing nothing to dispel my romantic thoughts about it. So,
I mean, I can tell you, I mean, there's people screaming out on my road and it's like nearly midnight. So maybe, or it's nearly 1 a.m. So that maybe, but
they have accents while they're screaming. I think I'd still find it endearing.
Yeah. Well, and you get that in Chicago, I'm sure. So yeah, the screaming is not different. Yeah, London was where I wanted to live for the longest time. I mean, I love Baltimore. I feel even more strangely tied to it now that I don't live in it. Like an absence makes the heart grow fonder type of situation, I think. London was where I always wanted to live. But yeah, I did fantasize about moving to Mexico City for a good long while. Like, was trying to convince my son, like, let's get visas. He was not having it, but I think if I had to leave London, I think that's where I would want to go if I didn't go back home. Yeah.
That sounds really fun. I feel like I would probably also choose London. It just sounds like such a hub. Like, everything, as you said, is like next to each other. So being able to travel like country to country like that sounds so ideal, especially since living in the Midwest, to get like anywhere cool, we have to hop on a plane, or we have to like spend 15 hours in the car just to get to like Florida or something. So being able to hop on a train very quickly like that sounds like the ideal scenario.
Well, and it's nice because it's similar to, I mean, any U.S. city that has the neighborhoods, where everything has its own unique feeling. But because it's so big and sprawling, there's so much of it to explore. There are pockets for you no matter what you like. I'm partial to East London. It's where I live. It's what I love. But it's very hotly contested which like corner of London you live in. So, you know, there will be people who tell you don't go to East London, it's horrible. I disagree with those people, but you know.
Okay. Someone asks, what are your favorite romance tropes?
Okay. Well, we've already talked about fake dating. I'm just obsessed with that as a concept. It's so funny to me. I love, this will probably come through in most of the books I write now that I'm thinking about it, but the grumpy sunshine trope, there's just something so endearing about a grumpy person being brought to life. I love that. The like rivals or enemies to lovers, I will always I'm
a sucker for enemies to lovers.
Yeah. But even like a really good friends to lovers where there's that like, will they, won't they, like we have so much history, we don't want to mess this up, like I can't.
I just love the tension.
The tension.
We're like, just make out with each other and this will all be fine.
Just kiss already.
We're watching Abbott Elementary at the minute and screaming down at the TV. I'm like, they just need to get together. I'm sick of this. So,
Oh, just kiss already.
I know. Yes.
Okay. One other person writes, if you could write in any other genre, what would you write in?
I don't know if I'm even qualified to write in anything else. I really only even read romance. I'm trying to think, what have I read that's not romance?
Do you ever delve into fantasy? Do you read any fantasy?
I've tried, but I've never found fantasy that I really enjoyed, which is like so controversial. People keep trying to convince me to read it, and it's never stuck. I don't know. I'm sorry.
You're so fine. Just like my book selling instinct, I'm like, fantasy is like my realm of expertise. I read Half a Soul, which is like this Regency era romantic fantasy where it's like light fantasy, but more heavy on like the romance and like the Regency. And it is one of those books where it's like, if you're just getting into fantasy, I think Olivia Atwater is like the place to start because it just feels like just a romance novel with like magical aspects to it. And it was so great. We did it for our romance book club and we had such a great discussion about like genre and like, would this be classified as a romance novel? Would this be a fantasy novel? And so it was just super insightful. It was so good. And I think it's the third book in that series. It's Sapphic. And I think you would really like that one.
All right. I'll try it. Every other fantasy that people, it's always like fae romance and I don't know anything about fairies or anything. And so I've got no clue what's happening for the vast majority of it. And then I'm just so confused that I'm just like, I just nope out of it so early. People keep trying to convince me to go back and I just never do. I like contemporary rom-com.
Right. Always go with your gut too, though. Like, don't try to. I'm the same. I live fantasy, but if you don't love it, stick with it.
I'll try this though, because I'm curious now. You've convinced me. I'll try it.
It's just like Olivia it's like this whole Regency fairy tale series. So like if you don't like one, you're guaranteed to find another one in this same series that will like speak to you. Because like you can read them literally in any order, which is like super dope. It's super cool. So like if you don't like Half a Soul, you could read, I think it's Long Shadow. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like you could read that one and that one could be your cup of tea. So like you can mix and match. You can start at the very end, work your way to the front. So it's super versatile, which is what I really love about that series. It's very beginner friendly.
Okay, good. That's what I need. Okay, it's on my list.
It looks like we have just like one last question. What are you reading now? And then what book would you recommend for a beginning romance reader?
Ooh, okay. I am one of those unhinged people and I have like 5 or 6 audiobooks going at once. And then I just dip in and out depending on the day or how soon it's due back to my library, which is very soon. So at the minute, I'm reading The Davenports, Take a Hint, Danny Brown, Act Your Age, Eve Brown, and then what do I have in my other library? A load of Taylor Jenkins Reid because I'm trying to work through the whole backlist. And The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. So I'm working through a lot of things at the minute. I don't necessarily recommend reading that way, but I also listen to my audiobooks on 2.5 times speed. So I'm just, I don't know. I'm broken, I think. What would I recommend? See, that's such a hard question to be general about because it depends on what you like. Like people who like Emily Henry, because I'm her biggest fan, I think. And I'm just obsessed with her books. But if you like her voice, that is going to be really specific to you. And you might not like other things potentially. Or if you really don't like her voice, there are other people who you're going to like better. I mean, Book Lovers is just so good. You can't go wrong with Christina Lauren, I think. And they've got loads of books. So if you like that voice, there is a lot of different topics and tropes within. So then you can kind of pick and choose and figure out what you like and branch out. But I think Talia Hibbert is really good for that as well. And her books are just so good. Any of those authors, I would say, any of them, they're so good.
Yeah, I especially love Talia Hibbert. She just had a YA come out that like we're all also very obsessed with, and like we all audiobooked it, and we are just obsessed with her. We're manifesting she comes to St. Louis, right, to the publishing gods. But we love her. So I would actually start with Talia.
It got checked out to me, and then I didn't like claim it fast enough, and then it went sent off to somebody else. It was devastating. Now I have to wait weeks to get it back.
No, it's so good.
I know, it's my own dumb fault. I check my email and I go, okay, and then I forget it exists, and it just I'll learn my lesson one day.
Public libraries. All right. Well, that concludes our evening tonight. Thank you, Elle, so much, and congratulations on your beautiful book. She is amazing. She is beautiful. You can order copies from thenovelneighbor.com. We have them on our shelves. We would love to send them to you. We know how to use the mail. And thank you, Katie, so much for moderating. You are amazing. You can reach her at Beach Reads and Bubbly. I love your tag. It's so much fun. So you can read her reviews online there as well. So thank you two so much for spending the evening with me. We had so much fun, and we will see you later.
This is so fun. Thank you so much.
Okay, goodbye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.